What's the worst butterfly effect that you've set off, whether on purpose or on accident? Me spotting weird light outside my window led to me becoming homeless a couple years later. Saw weird light outside of our house one night, told Mom, it turned out to be my dad calling his mistress, divorce. Mom gets sole custody, some time passes, my mom is ready to move on and reconnects with an old boyfriend. They decide to go on a trip together. He and my mom end up in a car accident. She dies. I'm just about to turn 18, so I can't go into foster care, and my extended family takes her crap and ditches me, and I'm homeless. It's really weird to think of it this way. I do wonder what would have happened to me or to her if something in there would have gone differently. Not saying I would say this, but you can't even tell OP, oh, you shouldn't have ratted. They didn't mean to. It was a completely accidental ratting. I don't know how much more unfortunate we can get. But this is just story 1, so let's see. Next story. Asked 2 of my college friends if they were dating. The guy takes his own life. Are you guys dating or what? We should be, shouldn't we? They start dating. Not really working out after a few months. Guy's PTSD and bipolar flares. He says if she leaves him, he'll take his own life. They break up amicably after he gets some therapy. Mental health flare, and it decides it's time. Wraps his car around a tree at night so parents can cash in his life insurance. Edit. Bonus consequences. She becomes depressed and gets self-destructive. Looks to rebound. Finds cool but unemployed biker dude. Loses her job and doesn't use protection. Gets pregnant. Decides to keep the kid and stay with the guy while both unemployed. Turns out I ruined the lives of 2 friends via butterfly effect by asking for clarification. I know I can't blame myself here, but that doesn't stop me from regretting the decisions I made along the way. Next story. One night I decided to get drunk instead of studying for college. Went out with a few friends who I convinced to go out with us. One friend meets a girl that he ends up falling in love with. So he moves out of my buddy's apartment, leaving a spot open the next year that they need to have subleased. Ends up being a girl who wants to get in this apartment. I see her a lot since she lives with my buddies. I start dating her. It leads to the worst, most destructive, manipulative 2 years of my life. She leaves me 2 months before the wedding for another man and took all my money. Had to move back home and start my life over living with my parents. All because I wanted to get drinks one night. Next story. In 1971, I was in the pub with a bunch of friends talking about the following year's Olympic Games to be held in Munich. Someone suggested we should go to the Oktoberfest beer festival, and eventually 4 of us booked the holiday, drank our own weight in beer, and came home with a lot of stories. A young guy who had just started coming into the pub listened to all the stories, and a couple years later went to Munich to see it for himself. Fell in love with the German culture, cuisine, and the ambiance of the place. 20 years later, after the failure of his marriage, he went to live in Germany, hooked up with a Fraulein, and I used to visit him every year until he lost his life in a car crash in '98. And I still sometimes wonder about the effect of that first trip to Munich. Next story. Told my older sister and her friend that I can predict the future as a joke. They thought it would be fun to know their future. I predicted for my sister's friend that she will lose a lot of weight. She was obese. And that she'll ditch her boyfriend because she'll realize she can do better now and then marry a British guy. She's Lebanese, never been to Britain. Told my sister she'll immigrate to Canada, meet a guy whose family used to live in our hometown, and then they will get married. Fast forward a few years, my sister's friend did a gastric bypass surgery and lost a lot of weight, dumped her boyfriend and met a British guy teaching in the same school she's in, then got married. My sister applied to Canada and got the immigration, met a guy whose family lived in the same hometown as we used to, and then got married. To this day, I wonder if I did predict the future or if it was just an effect of what I said to them. OP, do me next, do me next. What's gonna happen to me, man? Seriously though, I was worried about when this story would go wrong because, the thread is the worst butterfly effect. This is not bad, I don't think. So I was all scared for nothing. Next story. Texted my bat crap crazy ex that we should hook up sometime because I was home alone and drunk/stoned. Well, she responded a few minutes later saying, sure, she took the train up to my place and we hooked up all night, multiple times, and not gonna lie, it was a ton of fun. That was a Friday night. On Monday, she texted me she was pregnant and sent me a pic of an ultrasound and 3 positive pregnancy tests. Well, I called her out on her crap. That was a blatant lie. There was no way she was pregnant that soon. It wouldn't show up on a test that quickly, and I wore protection and was too drunk to finish each time. Well, this was her ploy to get back with me, and it backfired hard on her. It sent her into this downward spiral mentally, and she ended up in a mental ward for a few days. Next story. Pressured a guy in his 50s to do an assault course race so I could get a $10 discount. If we had 5 people, it's cheaper. He eventually gave in, made it to the 5th mile, slipped and tore his cruciate ligament. He couldn't work, so stayed at home with his wife. He started arguing with her a lot, so much that they decided to separate and get divorced. He moved out, his adult children hated him, and he rented a house from a mutual friend. A few months later, our mutual friend calls me to let me know that the 50s guy had poorly screenshotted a mutual friend's photos from Facebook and used them as his own on Tinder. All's well and good, except he was a 5'2", 50-year-old Latino guy, and mutual friend was a 6', 30-year-old white guy. Usually, my mutual friend wouldn't be that bothered, except he found out from his wife, as one of her friends saw his photo on Tinder, but with the Latino guy's name instead. They were also about to get married, so both were really angry. Mutual friend tried to ring Latino guy. Latino guy hung up when he realized he was busted. Long story short, my mutual friend evicted him. Yeah, my bad. Next story. Agreed to have some group fun with my then boyfriend and 2 people he didn't know but I knew. Didn't go well. He ended up leaving me for them. Thruples are wild. I moved across the country for a job I probably would have turned down if I weren't single. He ended up breaking up their 4-year relationship. Because of one weird drunken night, I started a different career. He ended what could have been a marriage. One of the guys is now engaged to someone else, and the 4th person deleted all social media and got fat. Next story. I'm a big fan of this theory. I believe a lot of major incidents can be traced back to one defining choice or action, a bad one that jumps to the front of my brain. I was studying in college, pre-university in the UK, when a classmate suggested I join a sort of social networking website dedicated to meeting people who will be going to the same university as you. I joined and became friends with a really lovely girl. We got to talking, and everything about her ticked all the right boxes, or at least a 19-year-old me. Fast forward a few months, we're both at uni and dating. We have our ups and downs, but they were very extreme ups and downs. I hated my course I was on, product design, and applied to another university to study architecture, something I always wanted to do, but I stupidly got cold feet, as it meant I would have to move away and I didn't want to leave her, so I rejected their offer. We broke up shortly after and had a very messy and public breakup, along with having to see her get with her friend that I sort of knew had a thing for her, along with rumors going around that I hit her, which I didn't. So I'm 99.99% sure if I never had that conversation with my classmate, I wouldn't have joined that website, I wouldn't have met my ex. I would have gone to a different university and my life would be very different right now. That's mad. Next story. I have a few of these incidents, but this one in particular really shifted my life in a pretty big way. I used to work for an MLM when I was 19. I was doing really well within the organization, and I had a decent trajectory in terms of getting enough people on my team, which would have allowed me to earn 6 figures. I was stoked. Anyway, one night me and a handful of coworkers were at a bar drinking and playing golden tea. The bar never carded me, so I had free reign there. One of my coworkers runs up to me and asks if he could borrow my car so he and another coworker could pick up a beer at the store. To be honest, I have no idea what their end game was, but I had this really sweet 91 Toyota MR2 at the time and I loved it. I asked him if he was drunk and he assured me he wasn't, so I gave him my keys. Cut scene to like 3 minutes later and someone comes running into the bar from outside screaming, "Oh my god, they got into a wreck!" So I run outside and my coworker had managed to wrap my freaking car around a light pole in the bar parking lot. There were 2 people in my car, which left 2 head imprints in my windshield. They totaled it. Unfortunately for me, I only had liability insurance and my coworker was broke, so I was screwed. No car. I couldn't get to work. Now, mind you, this was in '99, so no Ubers or anything, and because I was having a hard time getting to work, I started running out of money. Finally, I'd lost all motivation to move forward with that job and found myself carless, jobless, and living in a friend's basement. 2 months later, I joined the Air Force, and it completely changed my life's trajectory, all because I trusted some moron with my car keys for 3 minutes. Crazy. Okay, well, trusting someone with the keys to an expensive tool in your life is risky no matter what. Doing it at a bar, I simply wouldn't. That just doesn't sound like a very good idea to me, man. Now, look, you were 19. I'm not going to say you deserve it, idiot. But I think you should have made different decisions. That's That's all. Next story. This is really a best butterfly effect, but I had a baby girl a couple of years ago and decided to get a vasectomy a year later because my wife and I were in our 40s and we knew we didn't have the energy or finances for another. Cue the urologist finding a lump in my left testicle and deep in my abdomen. Testicular cancer that had spread. 6 months of chemo later, I'm right as rain. But I never would have found out about it until it was a much more potentially lethal situation. So, I owe my daughter my life, in a way, which I'm sure she'll use to her advantage once she hits the teenage years. Next story. Had a flight booked to Bangkok, Thailand from Canada. En route to the airport, I decided I wanted to leave big cities for some sun and beaches. Booked a flight to Phuket before departure, and upon arrival took a ferry to Koh Phi Phi. Met this beautiful girl the next morning and had a deep conversation. Never thought I'd see her again as she was leaving. Ran into her before she left the island to find out she was staying for another night by herself. Fell in love and we're still together 3 years later. Never expected that. Edit. I don't know if this adds to the effect, but I might add she is also a fellow Canadian from my province, and I had partied in her university town several times before in a lot of the same establishments, all without knowing each other. Anyone who knows how to pronounce those Vietnamese names, I'm sorry. I don't have much else to say. I just don't know. Next story. Had an abusive girlfriend when I was 18. Naive me didn't realize that was a thing, especially from women. Not physical, emotionally. And then exploited that to basically steal from me. I made a lot for an 18-year-old at the time. Got engaged to said girlfriend. One of my coworkers kinda saw what was going on and found out she was banging one of his friends. He told me. I got upset and punched a plywood wall and broke my hand. Told her to screw off and cut off anything that tied me to her. I moved to a different city. Being there completely changed my outlook on life for the better. I went to school. Have a pretty damn good paying job, and I don't take crap from anyone anymore. If my coworker didn't decide to be a bro, things would probably be much worse for me. Don't be that person that doesn't tell someone they're being cheated on. Seriously, that's a jerk move if you keep that to yourself. Next story. Got a friend/former coworker a job at the office where I worked. Basically, she got to move from a part-time retail job to a full-time office job. Friend later turned on me, spread lies about me behind my back, tarnished my reputation, and later got me fired less than 4 months before my wedding. Most of the people I worked with were invited to the wedding and or other events related to the wedding, and very few except for my closer friends came because of the awkwardness. I guess you could also file this under no good deed goes unpunished. Next story. This kid used to bully me in school, so I complained to my mom, who took it up with the principal. Apparently this wasn't the first complaint, and he had been kicked out of his previous school for the same reason. However, it turns out that he's my dad's boss's kid, and the dad, for some weird reason, decides to take revenge by stopping my dad's promotion multiple times. Dad takes up another job, but he has to move to another city while we stay back because stability. Dad has an extramarital affair there. Mom finds out. It's an absolute crap show in my house for the next 3 years. My parents hate each other's guts but refuse to divorce because codependency and societal pressure. I spend those 3 years breaking up their fights and trying to talk reason into their thick skulls while also managing the household and my studies. Anyway, I've got depression and anxiety now, all because I couldn't suck up and take some bullying as a kid. OP, no. You not being able to take bullying, as you put it, did not make your dad have an extramarital affair. He did that all on his own, man. That's on him. Next story. When I was 21, I dropped out of college and waited tables for a bit. I had offers from 2 different restaurants. I waited tables for about a year at a big chain restaurant. I started picking up bartending shifts, then was made shift leader, manager, and finally assistant general manager. I dated a few waitresses and ended up marrying one. The marriage lasted 13 months and ruined my confidence. I went back to waiting tables and didn't date for 5 years. I barely got laid in that time. 15 years later, I finally start trying to date again and fail miserably. 5 years after that, I meet my wonderful wife and we have a great 4-year-old now. I don't know what would have happened had I taken the other job, but I probably wouldn't have spent 20 years alone. I still don't know how to be in a relationship, but I'm trying. Next story. I moved across the country to live with my best friend, basically my brother. It was so he and I could hold each other accountable and support each other in quitting drugs. It worked. But after a few weeks, we had a falling out over a mess in the house, and I moved back west. He never answered another one of my calls, and about a year later, I got a phone call from someone who explained to me he'd died. After I moved back west, he relapsed and graduated from pills to H. The rest is history. I'm grateful that the last thing we said to each other before I walked out the front door for the last time was telling each other, I love you, bro. Rest in peace, my dude. Next story. Caused my mom's boyfriend to be arrested by eating cookie dough and then blaming him for it, which caused my mother to get upset and make him go out to get more. But recently, one of the taillights had died, so he got pulled over to get a fix-it ticket, which California loves to give out. But when they ran his ID, they found a warrant out for his arrest because when he worked at a hospital, he stole a couple of computers. And thus he was arrested and I never saw him again. Worst butterfly effect? I don't know, OP. This seems like an ultimately good thing I want to say. I don't know. I just can't imagine a lot of good people who would steal computers from a hospital. I'm definitely not in the camp that stealing is always morally wrong, but this one, it just doesn't sound great to me. Next story. So, you know the protest in Hong Kong and now the coronavirus? Here's the story. A man thought his girlfriend cheated on him, so he ended her when they traveled to Taiwan. Hong Kong and Taiwan have no mutual legal assistance between them, which means they can't bring the man in Hong Kong back to Taiwan for court. This led to the Hong Kong government wanting to make an edit of the legislation, which might open a loophole for China to arrest and charge anyone in Hong Kong. Then the protest happened, and because of the protest, the tourism activity drops a huge amount, and therefore the coronavirus isn't widely spread in Hong Kong because no mainland Chinese came here. What a butterfly effect. Next story. I gave my cousin chickenpox. His dad/my uncle never had it as a kid. It's bad to catch as an adult, so my aunt had to take care of him the whole time, followed by the other kids in the house. This was pre-internet, so she missed critical assignments and a final for a grad school class. She had to go back the next semester to retake the class, then met a charming young man in class who she started an affair with and was caught, resulting in a messy divorce. My uncle fell into deep depression and was fired for drinking on the job. Next story. Not worst, probably best actually, but my house burning down in 2001 in high school paved the road for the rest of my life. My house burned down in 2001. Because of this, I started taking a different bus to school because I was living with a friend. Because of this, I met my first real girlfriend and real relationship in high school. She convinced me to go to college where she was going. I had no idea what I wanted to study, but the degree I got wasn't leading to any job prospects in the area, so I moved 20 hours south. Girlfriend and I had been split up for a few years at this point. That's where I've been since, with my now current wife, our house, and kid on the way, and I couldn't be happier. If the house didn't burn down and I hadn't met the original girlfriend, I probably wouldn't have gone to college and probably would be living in the same town I grew up in, working at the local mill or whatnot. Next story. I told my friend that there were some serious suspicions that his girlfriend was cheating on him, which turned out to be true. Turns out Buddy's ex took it out on her former college roommate and destroyed their friendship because she thought the roommate was the one who ratted her out. The friend wound up not really talking to much of her friend group from college at all as a result, and the first person who reached out to her pitched an MLM that she accepted. So now she's all in on an MLM because I told my friend about his girlfriend cheating. For some reason, I feel like that's the perfect punishment for cheating. Not necessarily life-ruining, not really a huge consequence, but just impactful enough on your life that it's like, yeah, you deserve this. Only if they're not successful. If they become successful in it somehow, then they don't deserve that. Anyway, that's the last story for today. Do you guys have any stories about this? If you do, let me know. For now, though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.